Faye, you want to introduce our guests or let them introduce themselves?
I'll start it off. Thank you everybody for joining online and in person. Please help yourself to lunches. And if you have parking, make sure you see LJ and she'll validate you. And also take our presenters who are spending time with us today are from InfoReady. For those of you who don't know, ASU has fairly high-level subscription to InfoReady. So it allows us to have multiple administrators work in the platform. The platform is used through our office, actually runs limited submissions and the evaluation for limited submissions, but also some internal awards and seed grants. We have those that we run out of our office, and Haley can talk a little bit more about limited submissions, how she uses it when she does her introduction. But we're also interested in expanding the capacity for on-campus seed grant functions. So part of this, and we thank you very much, Carlos and Scott, to come in and talk to us about ways InfoReady can be used and adapted. And I'm sure that you'll make yourself available for whomever, if we run out of time today, relationship with InfoReady, and you guys are very responsive to our requests. So I want to take a note that they did fly in again today and are doing a tour of Arizona. So we're their kickoff institution. I'm sure that you'll thank them heavily for their time today. But with that, I'll let you introduce yourself and go from there.
So I'm Scott Saracen. I'm Director of Sales. I work with Carlos and the team that supports ASU. I also represent one of our second products that we recently launched within the last year or so. And I think some of you, Haley, we've talked about the product concept is called a marketplace, and we'll talk a little bit more about it. The focus is going to be on review here today, and you know, the questions that you submitted that Carlos will speak to.
Oh, I'm sorry. Our speakers are on the ceiling, so if you wouldn't mind speaking up a little bit so people online can hear.
Okay.
Thank you.
And you know, but there is a complementary solution between review and the marketplace. It's called scale. So we'll talk about what that is. You know, what other customers are doing. You know, the main thing is not to talk about a tool for the sake of talking about a tool, but why are others using this tool? How are others using the tool? And what benefits can they derive? So we'll talk more about it.
And I'm Carlos Mancat. I'm the Director of Client Services. So my role with InfoReady revolves around pretty much the whole experience post-sale, as some of you have experienced. So that's the account management, the support team, and any sort of engagement at conferences or webinars, user groups, a whole array of things, really. So you know, these types of meetings are also a good opportunity to share with the new group, and also bring in feedback back home to share with the company, so we can continue moving in a direction to best serve you.
And I would say that feedback is very important. So I'm going to take notes, and you really do act on the things that we talked about.
Haley, I'm going to start with you, and if we can go around and do introductions around the room, and just as a give your name and kind of place in the organization and what you hope to gain would be great. Just a bullet point.
Okay, I'm Haley Boatman, Research Opportunity Manager for the Research Development Team. I am kind of the main point of contact for InfoReady here. So if anyone wants to use InfoReady or has questions about it, you kind of come to me. And I use it for the limited submissions process mostly in my role, where I rely on it to manage the review process and all the reviewer comments and all of the reviewer notes and things for the faculty who are doing limited submissions. Kind of my function of it. We also use it for internal grants. So departments who are running competitions or projects can use the system to do the same thing, collect applications and then run a review out of it. And that's also kind of managed in our office. And then locally at the unit level as
LJ Hernandez. I'm events coordinator for research development, and I scheduled this in the logistics part. For those of you online, if you have questions during their presentation, you can unmute yourself and ask it. We'll hear it in the room. If for some reason it seems like we're not hearing you, go ahead and shoot a chat message, and I'll manage it from there.
Hi everyone, I'm Jenny Carter. I'm the director of the Global Consortium for Sustainability Outcomes here at ASU. We use InfoReady to run our international competition across our global network of university participants. And I think we might have been the first competition here at ASU that had this kind of global membership that utilized InfoReady.
I'm Barbara Blankson. I'm an IREX UASD fellow on a fellowship, on a 6-week fellowship, and I'm with ASU on exchange for 4 weeks. And I originally come from the University of Ghana. I'm an assistant registrar, working in the office of the registrar at the University of Ghana.
Karen Walker, I'm the assistant director for research development, so I work with Haley, and so it's pretty important for me to understand what's going on with InfoReady and learn just about anything new that's happening, so excited.
Trina Rolson with the Graduate College Director of Physical Business Services, and I'm here to learn more. One of our groups used InfoReady a year or so ago, and so I want to see if we can expand the usage of it for other functions.
Theo Eckhart, Assistant Director of Research for the Herberger Institute for Design and the Arts. We use InfoReady for several different internal grant competitions, and I would love to pick your brains afterwards to make that or enhance that product if at all possible.
Okay.
I'm Assistant Professor Milagros Singoni at the Design School, and I am here to learn more about the process because to me it's still an enigma. So.
It's an enigma. Dana, and then we'll go online.
Dana Dusoni, I'm Proposal Manager in the Julianne Wrigley Global Institute of Sustainability.
Do you have any goals with it?
Oh, I don't know anything about InfoReady, so
Oh, okay.
I follow much more.
And then online, do you guys want to try to introduce yourselves? Like we can kind of guess who you are, but
Yeah, you just unmute yourself online.
I can pick on people if you want.
I can start. My name is Karen Kao. I am the manager of strategic partnerships for the Global Consortium for Sustainability Outcomes. And as Jenny mentioned, we use InfoReady for the platform for our grant program, which is open to a number of our global partners.
Okay, next. Amy Bennett. I'm just gonna call on people. Amy Bennett is.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yep, go for it.
I'm Amy Bennett. I'm project manager for the Center for Accelerating Operational Efficiency. We're now using InfoReady for an RFP that we've put out to the US-wide institutions, both industry but primarily universities throughout the US for Department of Homeland Security projects that will be under our center.
So that's currently ready. Thank you.
Sure.
Go ahead and mute again. I'm just going to check on the next person. Jessica Mosca, do you want to introduce yourself? Okay, doesn't have access to a mic. Jessica Mosca is amazing and in charge of. Why don't you write down what you're in charge of? What you hope to get out of this group?
Yes, it's being recorded.
Luz? Any mic? If you don't have a mic, go ahead and put your name in the chat box and let us know what you want to get out of this meeting. That'd be great. And how you use InfoReady. Pre-award services at Stanford School, perfect. No need to introduce me. I work with Carlos. Hi, Carlos. That's awesome. Okay, so Sarah's the N team. Robin. Okay, so Robin previously used InfoReady for internal competitions at School of Life Sciences. We're not currently using it, but interested in coming back to it. We want them to come back because they have a lot of opportunities that are currently, they're open quarterly, right, Robin? And they have like multiples quarterly. Anybody else on that one? Barbara, yay. Barbara's pre-award research administrator, so she's responsible for working with PIs to put in submissions of proposals. In psychology, we use InfoReady for looking at submissions. Okay. Oh, and then so she wants to maybe think about using it for internal competitions. Psychologists have got a very robust research portfolio. Anyone else? If you're on the phone, you want to introduce yourself? I think that's everybody. Oh, Elise Miller. Elise and Amanda, you want to introduce yourself?
All right, let's move forward.
No, I want to really torture you. Elise and Amanda, if you could put into the chat box what you hope to get from this meeting, that would be helpful. I think this is very helpful. But yes, we can move forward. Go for it, Carlos.
So,
Okay.
Yeah. There you go.
thank you. So we'll be speaking about InfoReady review, Dave mostly answering a bunch of questions. We also want to share a little bit about InfoReady scale, which is that marketplace. And then at our little presentation here, and once we get through that, it's not that long, so we won't bore you too long there. Answer some FAQs that Haley submitted, and then let's just chat, do a little Q&A. Sound good? So, a little bit of
So when Carlos and I travel together, we try to find interesting places to take on-campus pictures. So if there's some place here that we could get a good ASU picture for our portfolio, we're looking after the meeting.
mine was in the airport in Burlington, Vermont. They like their hockey in Vermont, and they had a little cardboard cutout with the mascots.
Yeah, we can do that for you.
Looks like Amanda wrote, just really quick.
Oh, Amanda's new. She's working with Robin. Perfect. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks everyone on the phone. Erica, you know. So just a little bit about InfoReady for those who don't know. The company began in 2010, and we actually, InfoReady Review officially launched fall 2013. And it was kind of, came out of a collaboration with a couple of institutions. And it's slowly grown over, the last 5.5 years to where we're working with about 140 higher ed and research institutions internationally, actually. It's primarily in the US, but we do work with some institutions in other countries. That's pretty exciting, and it's interesting supporting them. So we're always trying to find new ways to support our international customers. It actually has helped us help support our domestic customers as well. So I mentioned we have two products. One is InfoReady Review, which most of you are familiar with. We also have InfoReady Scale, which is more of a marketing, communications, promotion tool. And I'm not going to read everything, but I'm sure some of you have already been reading it silently. So a few things to share about InfoReady, some of the benefits. It's a great way to scale up your programs, both InfoReady Review and InfoReady Scale. It also does provide quite a bit of ease of use for all users involved, and quite a bit more transparency in the processes. One thing we continuously hear is that the busy work for manual processes is significantly reduced. There's an institution out there that said they reduced their efforts by 95%. That's an outlier. I'm not going to hide that as being an outlier. But for that institution, it was a huge win. It gave them a lot bigger capacity because they're a smaller institution. Now this 150% increase in team capacity, that actually comes from a fellow R1 institution. And their quote was, our administrators used to manage 2 competitions at once. And once we made the switch and had everything set up, they were able to manage 5 competitions at once. That gave them a lot more bandwidth to perform other value-added activities, namely working with faculty to improve research development on that front. So they've been very pleased with those outcomes. And with a lot of those things, you can find a scale as well. And that's more in terms of being able to find what's out there. So one thing we've heard is people sometimes struggle finding what's available on campus, and scale is big in that regard. So InfoReady Review is more process oriented. I call it a productivity tool because it does help you be more productive. So how does InfoReady Review do what it does? So it's a cloud-based tool, meaning that no matter where you are, you can go work on in the system, regardless of your role. And in InfoReady Review, an administrator creates an opportunity, is able to disseminate it and post it to a central location. One term you'll hear me use a lot is the term competitions. That's just the generic term we use in the system. And I like to say that up front, that way we're all speaking the same language. And when you create a competition and you set it up to collect applications and review them, so that makes it so that it's all standardized and coming in the same place.
If you're online, please mute yourself. It's the phone number at 734 is the area code.
Thank you.
And then there's quite a bit of flexibility in setting up what we call the routing steps to create the workflow for the review and approval process. Now, since all this information is coming into the system, it also makes it easy to make the award decisions in there, communicate out those decisions, share the reviewer feedback, track those outcomes via something called progress reports for the post-award, and pull all that out with reports that you can generate in real time.
I'm muting him.
Thank you. And we also do, for institutions that need a little customization, we do some customization as well. We also have data feeds in and out with various different tools. So here's some examples. Pivot, Banner. We're actually working on a custom Cayuse integration right now. I don't know if you use Cayuse here. That's something we're working on. We also import legacy data into the system as well, and we've done data feeds out as two.
Can I ask you a question on that? If you do with Cayuse, is the idea that you go through InfoReady straight to Cayuse, or what information would you pull from Cayuse?
So they're doing something interesting where Cayuse is the system of record, and the applications that are submitted there are automatically going to be fed into InfoReady Review for the review process.
So just to take it one step further, you're saying that the limited submissions are submitted through this system of record?
They're doing internal
reviews
through
Cayuse.
Yeah, and some
Okay. Weird. Okay. Thank you for explaining that.
So some features and functionality in the system. This used to be a wall of words, and I use smart art. It's going to need another draft, but here's a few of the different ways you can take different actions in the system. So there's all different types of user roles, administrators, applicants, proxies. I know there's a lot of people that submit on behalf of faculty members and other PIs here. So we'll be covering that topic. Letter writers, you can see the whole list there. You can collect information in various forms as well. One thing that I think that I've seen people doing more and more of is standardizing how the information is collected. So competition templates, notification templates for communicating the organizational hierarchy list, keyword list. That way, you don't have fewer free text fields in the system, or lower variance in terms of the number of fields used in application forms. That way, you can get richer data for reporting from a high level. We're also going to be covering the standard InfoReady templates today. I know that's a question that you get frequently. And there's a lot of different ways to collect the reviewer feedback. There's a list of all the different routing steps there. So you can do approvals, you can build your own review form. You can use comments, ratings to collect criteria, the feedback on criteria. We also enable you to have a committee feedback for approvals or rankings. And then you have one individual that would submit the committee's consensus decisions on that. All right, so that's kind of the committees are naturally an in-person process that doesn't happen within the system. But you still want to capture that information and record it someplace. So we provide that. And the routing steps can also be assigned by the admin as needed, or there's ways to automate the routing process as well. So I don't know how much of that you do here, but it might be something to look at. It comes with your license. So. And other cool stuff, right? Acknowledgement statements, those are digital signatures you can add at the end of the form so that when people have to check the box in order to submit. And so they're confirmed, they're abiding by your guidelines, by honor code, conflict of interest statement. You can also add notes in the system. So if you ever had sticky notes at your desk before, or like a file saved on your computer with notes about applications, you can actually enter that directly in the system so everyone has all the administrators have visibility on each application. And then we also accommodate two-phase competitions and pivot integrations. Import funding opportunities from Pivot directly into the system. And we'll get more into those, right? That's more just to let you know what's available, and if you have questions, we can cover those individually. This slide is always one that generates conversation. So this was the data from this chart actually came from our 2018 survey we sent out, asking people how they use the system. So you can see here, internal funding opportunities, far and away the most commonly used reason. Limited submissions is up there, and then you have a few others as well that are well represented. Here's a funny one. One of the others is registering drones on campus. That was an interesting one. Right? Because we didn't know this until we had a conversation with someone. Apparently, you have to, you probably already know this, you have to track and register the drones in order to get all of federal research funding. If you don't do it, there's some strings attached. If you don't do it, you get in trouble. So that was out of the blue for me. I didn't see that one coming.
Niche market.
Yeah. But they were able to. They found the system flexible enough to accommodate that need. Our original uses were limited submissions, really, and internal funding opportunities. Everything else grew organically from clever and enterprising administrators using the tools in the system to address different needs they had. So that seeing that growth was pretty cool.
I think, Carlos, before you go on, there will be, this was from 2018, there will be another survey in 2019. So we really value your input. So please provide all the information you can, because this is great information. when we go to different client meetings, this is usually where we spend most of the discussion. People talking about what others are doing and how else they can do it. The other question I would ask, if there's another angle to this, you know, when I ask the question, what does review do for you? Is it a product? Carlos mentioned, you know, a productivity tool. Is it? Do you see it as a productivity tool? Do you see it as workflow automation? Do you see it as sort of easing the busy work? I mean, is there, you know, one thing that you would, one category that you would put it in if you could just say InfoReady review does this? The person who uses it the most.
I think it manages the review process automatically.
So-
I'm not bugging 1,000 people to give me back all of their answers constantly. They do it in the system. I collect those answers simply.
So, and then I do think we're underusing it. So it is curious that you post that because we are, the majority of the activity here is limited submissions.
It would probably just be virtually,
Completely low.
and the fellowships and scholarships would probably be around like 10%, somewhere in
Yeah,
there.
so Katrina, we've been talking to Graduate College about doing the nominations, that they do a lot of, yeah, all manual. So we want to improve your process and your trackability using this platform. So, but again, we're underusing it. So part of her being here is to say, how can she take it back and to her unit and use it more widely there. I know that we can, my office has experience in managing solicitations and internal reviews, so I personally want to grow that out of research development at the university level. But we see, last year we started using it for nominations and it seems to be going well. We did look at it just for the benefit of this group. We look at it, we talked to study abroad as an approval, how they do study abroad projects now is a very manual Google Doc oriented thing, forms and like lots of review. And the reason that they do it is because they have to go through the provost office. They have to do multiple reviews before they go to the provost office. So they determined that InfoReady wasn't the platform they wanted to use. They're keeping it open, but we did go out and shop it with them. And then like there's another group, but
I talked to like just little units who are doing one-off solicitations that have fellowships or collaboration things.
oh, I use one-off things. So I do not internal funding opportunities, but for pre-review of large scale, like, so we recently had an NSF mid-scale research infrastructure one is the solicitation. And we wanted to look at and see if anybody wanted to do an internal review first. And so we just set up real quick, set up an InfoReady, set up the timeline. 4 people, maybe 5 people submitted to that online. We got reviews in and out, but there wasn't any, it wasn't tied to funding, it wasn't tied to any kind of benefit except that you got feedback from people who were interested in your idea. So it's a really great, quick, even, and no one had to be in the same room. And in fact, I think several people were on travel to review and then give feedback in. And another thing I note is that for limited submissions in particular, we gather a lot of information from people. So the difference between how we were doing it and how we are doing it, the feedback is immense. So it's constructive criticism based on really key questions that we ask people on the proposal that they're submitting.
Yeah, we're getting a more robust comment from the reviewers for the faculty who are trying for them.
And who are then
More
incorporating
helpful.
that for the next round. Just so you guys know. So all of those are up for grabs. And then we do poster competitions for well-being. Well-being.
And we did it for the MCTV, the DRIC.
And the DRIC. So we have events that we manage that we open poster competitions for. And it's not like you're approving declining, you're just collecting the posters.
Were you going to talk about trainings? Another one? Yes. Okay. I want to make a comment here about Carlos is going to talk more about training. Have you taken advantage of the informational webinars that we provide, Ask InfoReady and such?
Yeah, I attend most of them.
If you're not aware, there's three webinars that we are doing monthly. One of them is it's called Ask InfoReady, and that's pretty much Carlos running it. And we really just try to generate conversation between different users. So it's interesting. You know, we'll just kick off the meeting and some customer will ask a question, and a different customer will answer the question, and it'll turn into this kind of discussion. So if you're not aware of that, please be aware of that. It's on our website. We can share our website with you later that has the webinar schedules and the registration links and such. The other webinar we do is specific to new review customers. So it's more prospective customers, prospects versus existing customers. But we actually have a lot of customers who join that because they want a refresher course. Show me again that initial demo. I don't know, who was involved when you first purchased InfoReady, whether it was Max or somebody else, but it's that type of presentation of, here's review, here's what it does. We actually are surprised the amount of existing customers that join that session.
Well, one thing they do is if there's another unit on campus that is interested in using the system, they'll say, hey, look, why don't you check this out? Kind of have someone else do that part of the demo for them, and then they supplement it with additional in-person conversations.
And for you, you already own it, so you might as well leverage it as much as you can. So and then
the great thing too is that we can rotate administrators. So if if we have 20 already and Katrina's not using it for 6 months, then we can take her membership and move it to somebody else. Sure. And when she needs it, we can move it back. So I like that flexibility quite a bit.
And then the third webinar we do is related to scale. So and the next one we have coming up is in late February, and it's specific to review customers and what scale does for review for existing review customers. So that might be a good one just to be aware of.
And there's actually there's a fourth. These are quarterly or every other month. And those are panelist-based webinars where individuals from a couple institutions will present how they use InfoReady Review for the processes. And it's not just InfoReady Review. It's we did a limited submissions webinar in November. Dan from Arizona and someone from George Washington spoke about their limited submission process from A to Z. So InfoReady Review is a part of it, but they spoke about the whole scope of their process, which I think people find helpful, especially with limited submissions because it's emerging. We actually have one in early March that's going to be for internal funding opportunities. So we'll have administrators from Indiana University, Drexel University, saying how they use it for that.
And all of our webinars are recorded, so you go back and listen to that limited submission one, Carlos reference. So if you're on our website, there is a page for webinar activity. Make sure you check that out if you're not aware of it.
And just wanted to share a little bit of the 2019 focus with you. Divided into content and functionality. So in terms of content, you're really going to be going into overdrive with generating content. So a lot more documentation in terms of best practices for uses of the system, but also the functionality in the system. So you see a lot more of that. A lot more content, like individual pieces, and also the way the support portal is laid out for helping new users or infrequent users get started more quickly. So that's already started actually. If you go to our support portal now, you'll see a lot of information to help you hit the ground running right at the top of the page. We'll be doing more client spotlight blog post article types. Those are on our website, always available, and then more webinars as well. So
the client spotlight via the newsletter. So you get the newsletter, and there's usually an interesting article that.
Weren't you last time?
I was one.
Yeah, we did one.
A couple months ago.
Yep. You were the
Haley was you.
December.
You're the December penalty.
And in terms of functionality, we're looking at these 4 areas for significant continued enhancement. So notifications, and that can go so many different ways, right? But we're looking at working on notifications in terms of delivery, how you put them together, how they're stored, who you can communicate with, all those types of things. And in terms of progress reports, I want to provide a lot more functionality for progress reports. People already say they're quite useful, but everyone says this is a great way to collect information that's hard to collect sometimes. We want to do even more, so we want to address those needs. In terms of routing steps and review options, we want to create even more flexibility around the way you can set up the workflow for the review process and continue to improve the reviewer experience. Because we all know that the workflow is important for being able to do more and more types of processes and more use cases in the system. And then your reviewers, oftentimes they're volunteering at a time, so you want that to be a good experience. We don't want them yelling at you, right? So we don't want them getting frustrated with you. So we're going to continue making that better. And then lastly, reports. Put a lot of information in there in the system. We want to be able to get it out in a format that is that allows you to spend as little as time as possible on layout and format, and just be able to present it to someone.
Does the reports include the reports out on reviews or reports on usage? So there's levels, right? There's the reporting function for currently downloading the reviews and the scores is not horrible, but can be improved, and we've talked about that. But then there's also this other level where she could download all the competitions that have been run for the last 6 months and see how they fall out and who's submitted, and so that's level higher. So which level are you talking about? Both different? Another level?
Mostly the first level.
Okay, so the bottom level, which is the reporting out to the user on what has been happening by competition. Great.
And more qualitative reports, right? Word, PDF type. We spit them out in Excel right now. So if you had something you wanted to share in a committee PDF format, you can do a little bit of that right now, but we want to do more, provide more options on that. Okay. I'm going to turn it over to Scott for a few minutes here.
Yeah, and I'm just going to take a few minutes because I know the focus here is to talk about review. So the main thing to remember about the two products is that there is some relationship between them. So they're not just different, disparate products that you use this, we're trying to sell you this. There is a full integration between the two products. We do have a growing number of review customers who are now moving to add on the marketplace and scale functionality. And we can make it easy for you to do this. Some of our clients are adding the marketplace scale as just like you would add a microsite. I mean, I know you're at a gold level where you get a lot of functionality, but you still can add microsites a la carte. You can still add news a la carte. And we're taking that same approach with scale now in terms of making it an extension, making it an add-on a la carte item. This is an example of what the marketplace looks like. The main thing to remember about the marketplace is that it really provides a complementary solution to review. It does things more than review can do in terms of promoting the competition, promoting the program, the opportunity in a different way. This would be the graphical depiction of what the marketplace looks like. I mean, you're familiar with how review looks with just the list view, and what a lot of customers are doing is using it to just have a better platform to promote the opportunities. What Carlos has up here right now is an actual site that I built in less than an hour and a half. So what I did was I went in, branded a marketplace. Those probably aren't your exact color tones, but
Because you get in trouble otherwise.
But think of it that I did this in 90 minutes. I actually went out to your website. I grabbed some content from your website. What Carlos is showing now is the concept of a carousel, which is the ability to maneuver on that row. We've taken constructs. I don't know if you saw
British comedies.
one of the slides. I don't know if you saw one of the slides that Carlos flipped to. It had pictures of Amazon and Netflix and such. What we've done is taken constructs of different marketplaces. So with Amazon, we've taken the example of storefronts. With Netflix, we've taken the example of the carousel, where you just continue to scroll and find the movie you're looking for. We actually have a growing number of customers and a growing number of use cases. So it can start in the research department. LSU was our first customer to put review in the marketplace. So it's not just putting review in the marketplace. So think of these tiles. One of those tiles would be your review competition. But then what they've done is put everything else from their research department, different workshops they're promoting, different activities they're promoting, different programs they're promoting. They even have their whole SPIN database in the marketplace. So the way the marketplace works is it's a thin layer that sits on top of everything else that you have. It's not replacing anything. So it's basically exposing everything else you have via the marketplace. It's a central location that allows you to aggregate information. And then this becomes the place that you would go to find the opportunities. The one on the right is the LSU example. The one on the left is interesting. One of our clients actually put their entire course catalog, their Gen Ed course catalog, in the marketplace. So each one of these tiles represents a class, a course. So there's a use case for research, but the use cases then go anywhere else on campus. We have one customer who's looking at it as a whole campus-wide adoption. Their kind of motto is kindergarten to retirement and everything in between. The kindergarten portion of that is the K-12 summer camps. So the before and after picture is all of the summer camps were on different websites, different landing pages, a link to a PDF, a link to a registration form, collected and aggregated all that, and it looks like this now as one place to go. So as a parent, you can relate to how easy it would be to go one place. But that's the same for whether it's a student services use case, or whether it's a community engagement use case, or alumni activity use case. We can talk more about, this is an example of what we call the one-click integration between review and scale. So when you go through, you'll recognize review on the top left. When you complete setting up a new competition, you have the one box that says configure the marketplace. You select that, and then that tile automatically gets created in the marketplace. I don't know how much more I want to say about this. I did bring copies of this presentation, so if anybody's interested, I've got 10 copies in my briefcase. This picture here, really, I don't know if you have this picture. You see different examples.
Didn't make the final cut.
Didn't make the final cut. Go back to that one slide where we talked about the challenges, because I heard you mentioned doing things manually. I mean, typically, where we get into conversations about a fit. I mean, this isn't a fit for everybody, but where there's a fit is one more back. No, it was one where it said common challenges. Right there. So, when I go and talk to people about the solution, they still talk about doing things manually, managing projects with spreadsheets, corresponding with email. I was talking with a customer, and they were talking about this huge faculty event that's a 6-figure event they do annually, and it's the big announcement where they talk about what's new, what's coming, what's this, what's that. Spend a lot of money. And I asked them, how are you promoting it? And they said Facebook. And I was, there was silence, and I was waiting for them to say something else, and that was it. And then they were complaining about why they weren't getting great participation, So we have a good solution for that. This marketplace. This picture here, and you can kind of get a gist of it. One of the hobbies that I've made is to go on campus, and I could probably find one here, right? A bulletin board. I could probably find one here. I'm taking pictures of them now. That's going to be my retirement plan. I'm going to develop coffee table books but you know, one client said, well, it's kind of an electronic bulletin board. You know, everybody knows what this is, and we kind of take that concept and put it in the marketplace. So yeah, there you go.
When you do this, I'm curious because you can do it for, in our particular case, you can do it for limited submissions as you've illustrated. But ultimately we're redoing funding.asu.edu website, which is currently under discussion. But one of the concepts that we had was to surface limited submissions in a way that's a little bit more user-friendly. You obviously offer that. But we have a dedicated website, right? So what's the integration for Marketplace into a dedicated website that's existing already?
Yeah, so I made the comment, this doesn't replace anything. Sometimes this is the first place people come because you point them here. For if it's specific to your department, then you would point them here, and the website might be a link from here, or vice versa. We come in and do some analysis and figure out what the right flow is for you. So some cases the marketplace is further upstream than the website, or vice versa. One of the things that are you able to go back on that site, that demo site, real quickly? Because one of the things I did want to go to the athletic one, because I know I built that right. Where is it? Right there on the bottom. So if you go down to the More button and then Learn More, all this is a link back to your site. So you recognize this. So in the tile itself, in the marketplace, that tile is just a link. So you create the content in that simple description of the tile. And then the Learn More, or if there was some workflow behind that, in the example with the K-12 summer camp, the workflow behind that is to sign up to the course and pay for the course, pay for the camp. So all of that workflow is built where you see the More.
And it goes to the existing link.
It goes to the existing link.
My question is more of like this space page, could it exist? I think you've answered it. I just want to confirm that my understanding is correct, that we have a website and you come in and tell us if it can link into or out of, or I guess, where is it pre our website or is it post our website, but it has to exist kind of separately from our website.
Yeah, and I made the comment it sort of sits on top of it. So this could be the first place, and then I had one customer describe it as the air traffic controller, because this is where they come first, and then they know where to go.
Yeah.
We actually come in, one of the steps in the process that we talk about is we've got this program called the Marketplace Action Plan, and we really come in and do this discovery, and that's where we figure out, because it's not one size fits all, so it's going to be a little different from you than it is for any of these other use cases. But it's intended to be real easy to use. I mean, there's no coding requirement. When you go on Amazon, do you need any training? It's the same concept here. You just go, you log in, you see where there's the registration link, you see where there's the Learn More page. Okay, I want to buy something. PayPal pops up or whatever payment system you're using. So we're excited about it because as I mentioned earlier, we launched it last year. The way that review became this rich tool that it is today is by customers telling us, and I'm sure you've made lots of recommendations to Carlos over time about what we should do. We listen to that, and that becomes our product roadmap. I mean, our product roadmap is made up of client feedback saying, I need this or change that. It was sympathetic here. Yeah, and that's the way scale developed. That's the way the marketplace developed. We had customers that come to us and said, I'm not getting this review. Can you build a tool? It is a separate engine, so it's a separate platform. It does in the area of analytics and reporting and some other things.
So you can see who's going where.
Exactly. It provides functionality that review doesn't provide, and we built it based on customers saying, if you build it, I'll buy it. It's kind of how it came to be.
We plowed our corn on there. No.
Aphorisms over there.
So I mean, I'll just leave it at that unless you had any questions, but we can talk more. but I don't know if you know, I saw you chuckling when I shared that ASU marketplace
Because
site.
it's just like, people will hate that. We're in the wrong building for that to appear on the screen. That's all. They're very touchy about our brands.
Yeah.
But I was thinking, so like for grad college, that might be an interesting way. We can have them come in and talk. And again, everything for those of you online, I'm open to anything, and having and liaising with InfoReady to have them come in and scope out some work would be absolutely okay with me. You can lead that, or I can lead it, or you can lead it and then come back to me, however you want to deal with it. We are paying for InfoReady out of my office, so we'd have to negotiate that, but but we have a very good relationship, so I'm not worried. But for instance, grad college might have nominations that would work really well in that rotation, that carousel. I personally think it would be a very nice way to surface limited submissions. We have a similar program that we do for training, Research Academy, which runs on that tile idea, but one of the tiles could be go to Research Academy for additional training. So I think that we could integrate really well with what we have existing on campus. So I'm going to think about. But we could say, you know, on HIDA could have a link to, these are the 4 open competitions, or you could even link to the InfoReady or to the limited submissions. Some of the NEH stuff that we have could get more surfaced. But I'm open to that, just throwing it out there. Was there a question?
No, I was just,
Okay.
It was flashing.
yes. I was asking people to either unmute themselves or submit via the chat box. Yes, that question.
I ask a crazy question, because we've been meeting with several vendors regarding so not only distinguished awards, but our internal fellowships that we have. And because there's a lot of student data that we collect, we're running into roadblocks with FERPA data. When this original contract was done, did that include student data?
No.
So we'd have to
No,
go back to,
we'd have to
if
go
we
back
wanted
and
to
revise
use
it.
it for
It's-
that, we'd want to.
Yeah, right now we have a stipulation. It's because no data like that is collected on the platform. Exactly right. But nothing's unmovable. We can do that.
There are dozens of institutions that do collect applications from students.
And so just as a point of clarification, we worked with several vendors for 9 months. We spent with one to try and get the contract signed. They didn't want to agree to the ASU language because we're kind of setting the bar pretty high as far as security review and all of that. And so there were a lot of other institutions that were collecting that information, but it didn't abide by our standards of FERPA.
It's a good tip.
So yeah, just putting it out there. Yeah, it's a little.
Maybe you could, well, we could look at that now and
Yeah.
see if it's something, if it's a bar you can meet, then we could take the conversation there, for sure. Yeah, we haven't done
Offline, we should.
FERPA.
Okay. And I know that the ones that we used previously, because they were not ASU students, we were okay. But it's when they become actually our students, we have a higher level of accountability. I learned that.
It's good to learn. Other random questions?
So let's get into the FAQs a little bit. Haley sent some over. The questions she gets frequently.
True, they're the frequent questions.
So it seems as though you have quite a few individuals who submit applications on behalf of faculty members.
Constantly, yes.
So let's get started there. That's a good place to go. So the system does have proxy capabilities for a designated proxy to submit on behalf of a faculty member, an applicant. And I'm going to show you that a little bit right now. So one thing in the system, when someone goes to a competition, you'll see a little button there that says apply as a proxy. That only appears if you've already been made a proxy on behalf of that applicant. And you know that I don't know if that's a place where people get stuck, but we'll talk about that.
I'm sure that's not where they get stuck.
Well, was this not appear?
They're pushing the button. Yeah. Yeah.
But once it is
This location.
the previous location, but once this is set
On the
up,
proxy.
once it is set up, you just click apply as a proxy. You choose who you're applying on behalf of, and you can be a proxy for multiple individuals, and you can also have multiple proxies as well. So gives you a little bit of flexibility there. The proxy functionality is also a way to collaborate on filling out an application. So if you ever have that arise, recommend the proxy. The issue is getting to this point. So an applicant, so a faculty member in your case, they should go to their profile. And when they go to their profile, there's actually a section called Designated Applicant Proxy. All I have to do is click Add Proxy, enter the email address of the individual. That person will get an email telling them that they're a proxy. And then they'll see all the nice buttons in the interface that direct them to go to the right place.
Make it easy.
And then that applicant can also manage their proxies here as well. So if you need to remove access, just click the trash bin, and that will be removed. For the proxies, once they're in, there's a few additional things you should know as a proxy. When you're in the application, you have to remember that you're applying on behalf of this person. And so one thing that you should do as a proxy, if you want to get notified every time the applicant gets notified, is entering your email address here. If you enter your email address here, all communication that goes to that faculty member will also be sent to you. So you need to stay on top of things. Entering your email address here automatically CCs you on all the communication. This is a place that people likely forget to take an action.
So, and is that permanent?
The administrator can go in and remove it as well.
So I'm thinking like for Robin, who's assistant director, I don't know, she's way up there, and she's the boss of the faculty in School of Life Sciences. She's not really the boss, but she could go in and she could ask all of her faculty to just one day go around and say, enter my name and my staff names into the system as proxy, and then they would all be set up in InfoReady. That might be just a good process to be an RA and just do that. But then your take-home message is that when you do apply, you should also add yourself to be notified for anything having to do with that application. Correct. Or if a faculty member takes the initiative and applies on their own, which is always an option, they can also add Robin, for instance, as a notification email. Correct. Okay. So it works both ways. What I like about the system, it works both ways. Okay, perfect. This also helps us when we notify on opportunities that are advanced, right? So we can say, dear Professor Y, congratulations, you've been selected to move ahead. We're very thorough, but if we wanted to automate it even more, then you could also notify the RA at that point. You don't have to spend any time looking it up. That's my plug for RAs to put their name in there.
Good form for that.
Yeah.
The proxy functionality isn't just for an applicant and as a designated proxy. The administrators can also submit proxy applications for anyone who's in the system. So
I'll say that a different way too, is that if Katrina is an administrator in the system, she can actually apply on anybody's behalf for any opportunity. If you're an administrator
if you're the
administrator of the opportunity.
Yes. So you would go into your competition that you're managing, and the submit application button will appear. Put in the email address of the person you're applying on behalf of. If they are in the system, they'll be in the drop down. Just select their name. If they're not in the system, they will have to be added.
Is there a limit to the number of users that can be added to the system?
No.
There is a limited number for administrators. We talked about that before. We have 20 and we can rotate them through the system. And I don't think we're fully using.
You have more than 20.
We have more than 20.
40.
We have 40. So we have a lot. Like I really want to blow the lid off this. So
For another system, there's a limit to the number of users that can actually be in the system based on that was the pricing tier was the number of users.
Yeah, the only limit is the number of admin seats.
There's
Can
no, I'm sorry.
Can admins see other admin, or is it divided by,
You can make,
like Herbers or?
you can make someone a co-admin.
Okay.
So you can, multiple administrators can collaborate on managing competition.
So, but if you made me an admin for grad college, I would only have access to grad college opportunities.
So right now I'm making an admin of the internal competition site. And so technically, when you're an admin, you can see all of them on that microsite. Carlos, is that?
If you're a super admin for the microsite, you can see all the opportunities on that microsite.
Yeah, so that's how I set it up now. Yeah.
So you can see all the grad college stuff,
Only the grad college.
and you can't see the limited submission stuff, because that's on a different microsite. That's what you're asking.
Yeah.
There's an online question. Can you show the process to route specific applications to specific reviewers?
Yes.
When we get there. Yeah, Karen is in.
Oh, okay. I just know my
I know Karen.
Well, then all's good.
So we can cover that right now, actually. Now that we're here. One other thing, reference letters. Letter writer can also have a proxy. They just have to forward the email sent by the system to the department administrator or whomever it is. Maybe you store all of reference letters one place, just forward it, and then that person can follow the protocol that's in the email and submit the reference letter on behalf of the original.
Do you guys do, in the grad college, I haven't seen Katrina in a really long time, so I'm just asking her a bunch of questions. In the grad college, do you do like reviews of, do you do any pre-approval reviews of theses or anything like that? Like,
They do through the format process, yeah.
the format process. This might be something to think about for the format process for review. And then the letters of reference we don't do out of my office, so I don't know who does it. I don't even know letters of reference. What would that be? Nominations sometimes?
The Smithsonian Institute collaboration that is run out of someone in Souls. Asked for a letter of reference from another faculty member on behalf of the student to qualify them for the opportunity.
Great.
So they're very that through that.
I find it better with examples.
When I was thinking for our internal ones, sometimes there's a department review, faculty, or recommendation.
Yeah, and so this system could be set up so that Arturo can look at it and approve it, or any of his captains or whatever they are, assistant deans, and then they can actually review, provide comments and review forward. This system is adaptable to that.
So, in regards to setting up we call them routing steps, which is the workflow for the review process. In regards to setting that up and then assigning reviewers, you can add routing steps at any time.
Okay.
You can tweak parts of it. You don't want to edit a routing step after you've already assigned reviewers. Right. Right. That's going to give you a different set of problems, right? But you can add routing steps after you've launched a competition or after you've started the review process. Maybe you said, oh, we really need to add another approval step at the end. You can do that on the fly. In terms of adding routing steps, in terms of assigning reviewers, we actually, on the enhanced application grid, we provide a few different views of the information. The All tab will show you all the applications that are in here, and you can sort by status. But we also have, you can view things by stage on the enhanced application grid. So we can see the Review tab, see all the routing steps, see the status of each routing step, how many applications are assigned to each, complete, incomplete, late. So you can get a high-level view of that. Then when you scroll down, you can actually see each application and who's assigned to it, and when the reviews due, or whether they've submitted information, or even if no one's been assigned to review that application in a particular step. So you get a lot of information at a glance here on the application grid. Now, sometimes you do need to drill it, and you can do that as well. You can actually assign reviewers in batches to multiple applications, or you can go into an individual application and assign reviewers. If you wanted to assign it in batches, just check the box next to the applications, And there's the batch action menu. Choose your action, click continue, and then you go through, select the routing step, enter in the email addresses, add the deadline, and you're off. Just click the go button.
So for the email addresses, you would have to actually manually pull those in for each one, or can you pull in, like, we know all these people are reviewers?
Yeah. So you could set up if you know the same 5 people are going to review all 5 applications, you could, when you set up the routing stuff, you could add them as default reviews. And then when you go in, once the applications are in, when you do this, all those email addresses will auto-populate, so you could just add the deadline and click send.
For myself. I put myself as the default reviewer on all my.
So,
Carlos, that was an online question from, was it Karen?
Yes.
Karen asked if we could do different reviewers. That's probably the next step. If you click into one application and show that.
So you could go in here and have a lot of dummy data here. So let's go into this one right here. This application, two applications. These 2 applications will assign reviewers to. There's already 1 reviewer assigned to them. I will assign 2 different reviewers there. Look at me. You're trying to show you how to do things, and I'm not doing it right.
You get paid quick.
I know. That's why they sent me out here, so I wouldn't be in the office.
Yes, you're messing it up back there.
So when you click send, and then the reviewers are assigned.
This is a good point, is that when you set up, and we can walk anybody through this if they choose to. I'm sure Haley can find time on her calendar, because I'm volunteering here too. But to actually set up a competition and to walk through it. So we'll create a competition, and then you create your routing steps during that effort, or you come back and create your routing steps. But those routing steps need to exist before you assign reviewers. So when you but you can assign them, like he's showing you, to different people. But we can show people how to do that, and then also you have webinars otherwise can show that.
And with the routing steps, two things to remember. They progress sequentially. So one step has to be done for the next to begin. So that's always something to keep in mind. However, point 2 there is there's an option when you're setting them up to have some run concurrently. So, for example, if you have different disciplines that have different criteria, you could set up 2 routing steps, link those so they run concurrently, and you're not waiting on one. Have your subject matter experts for each discipline review based on their own criteria, and when they're done, maybe you have another routing step after that stage to do additional approval. So there's some flexibility with how you trigger a routing step to begin and how you stage them.
And we don't do anything complicated like that. We're very flat. We just have the review criteria, and we send it to the reviewers, and we collect that information back. So we don't have experience with that. We're very functional. However, I can see easily how if you have a data person and you want somebody to say, how do you want to extract the most value out of the system, that would be ideal. So do concurrent reviews or sequential reviews or subject matter experts. Like we were just talking about red team reviews. It would be interesting to use the red team review through InfoReady.
So I had a client spotlight
I'm not
last
doing
month
it yet. Oh yeah?
About someone using the system for that.
For red team?
Yeah.
Okay, I'll go look.
So how do you get to that application grid you were just at, where you assigned the reviewers? Is it up there on the banner? Is it?
It's when you're in the competition.
Yeah.
Under enhanced application.
Okay.
That's
Okay.
one of the menu options on the right.
So you click on that and that's right, okay.
And the review tab.
And in the old version, in the regular old version, it just is, it doesn't have that header. The original application grid is just go straight to your application.
And here's the, and you can't see the reviewers that are assigned to each application. So you get a lot more information up front rather than having to drill it.
Can I add one more thing? If you don't have tons of applications, I find it easier from my personal perspective and opinion not to look at that huge list of things. If you just have a couple, I click through them individually and add the reviewers. Just depends on how many you're working with and how many things you want to batch to.
And
You can add them, you can add reviewers in this grid format, or when you're on the application itself, you can click reviewers and then add your reviewers right there. Yeah. So if it's 20 applications and 19 of them are doing it the same way, you can do the batch, and you can do the one or whatever it works out.
And when you're working with an individual application, you have a couple more options as well. Right? You skip a step for an individual application here. Maybe if you have multiple steps, sometimes an application doesn't need to go through particular steps. You just go in here and skip. We actually want to turn that into a batch action this year. You can also go in and review by proxy. So
if a reviewer doesn't submit on time or can't figure out the system, we've done that. So they send us their reviews and we just dump them in there.
That's exactly right. And then you
It's
just
particularly helpful.
It is, especially like 10 minutes before the meeting.
So I'm guessing the system doesn't have the capabilities, if I have 100 applications and I have 20 reviewers, to randomly assign those 20 reviewers to different applications.
does not.
It's not.
Write that down. Random assignment of reviewers.
So I'm gonna ask a question which is totally out of order of what you're doing here, but you just had that previous screen up where you had the comment, insert a comment box, and then beneath that the rating scale. And last year something we faced with our competition was reviewers could do the rating scale, but if they didn't put a comment in the box, you could not submit your final review. Is that still how it's structured, or? So we had to go back and advise people to put NA or like insert an asterisk.
We spoke on the phone, I think.
You probably spoke to someone on my team. Yes. So they had to do, is that still how it is structured?
So there's a few different types of routing steps. So the comments and rating steps always require a comment and a rating. And that's one of the reasons why people say that the review process has become much more informative and helpful. However, we do have an additional routing step option this year that you would not have had last year. It's called Build My Own Form, and you can build a review form from scratch.
Okay.
That's what we were talking about, Karen. I don't know. I don't use the Build My Own Forms. I don't know tons about it, but I'm sure Carlos can show us. And then maybe we can get further training on how to use it most efficiently.
So if that seems like a lot of work versus just telling people to put NA or an asterisk or something like that.
Or maybe not, because then you can make it a template and then you don't ever
And
have
you
to
save
do it
it
again,
and
right?
never have to do it again.
Okay. So then you could just, like save options when you build the application form. You choose which type of field you want to add.
That's interesting. Because that's, so one of the things that we do with limited submissions is we're very pleased with the amount of information pulled out for those comments, so we would never really want to get rid of those. But if I were to do some of the preliminary questions I ask upon submission, the way that I'm thinking about it is when you create your competition, you can actually say which of the 4 domains do you fall in, or if you have you ask some kind of question for the submitter to answer, right? So you do a checkbox and say I'm 1, 2, or 3, or 4, and that's part of the collection of data for me. And I find that really helpful. So it lets me classify people for the seed round that we run. Now, if I did this, we could, if I did I didn't realize you'd done this, so I'm very excited. But if you could say a yes, no question for the reviewer to say, does this meet the threshold for, budget accounting or something like that? Does it meet this threshold? I think that would make the review a little bit more strong for our seed grants as well. but I would do it in some kind of combination with those comments. I don't think limits going to change too much, but I like the idea of having a custom one.
So what we see sometimes
It's like Qualtrics, right?
They were sold. They
Qualtrics?
were bought late last year.
Yeah, they just got a new logo. I don't know, there's stuff called Qualtrics in our system though. So one of the things we've done is reached out to people who are doing their submissions on Qualtrics, and she'd done it 2 years ago on Qualtrics or on Google Forms. It was Qualtrics, I think. It was a long time ago.
Smart to forget.
Yeah, so it was Qualtrics, so you had to define your submission, and then some other people do it, well, the study abroad people do it on Google Forms still. But the reason is because that customization is, it's easier to do sometimes in those other platforms. So kudos.
We're going to continue.
Herberger makes their own. Herberger proudly makes their own from scratch.
Yeah.
It's a lot of work.
Review forms, yeah.
It is a lot of work. I think if you do it, like you said, Haley, if you do it once, you save that template and recycle that.
Mine are always the same for every review cycle, right? We have standard questions and ask for standard comments, but
You tweak here, tweak there.
yeah.
I think it's important for Robin to hear that discussion too, because Robin will have 4 different competitions quarterly, and the 4 ones for postdocs, ones for students, ones for faculty, and so the questions that you ask might be different based on those. But again, once you set up the form, it should be just there.
You know, one other thing about standardizing the competition fields and creating templates. If you ever forget to save something as a template, you can actually copy the competition.
You can copy the competition.
Yeah, so there's this copy option. Now you can create a draft and you can just launch it, make tweaks and launch it, or you could save it as a template and launch it.
So I think the pre-work, this is a good point too, is the pre-work too was overwhelming for School of Life Sciences in a lot of ways, because it was setting it up the first year and then copying it from year to year. You really have to design it and think it through each year. But the system is robust enough that if you wanted to change it, that would be fine. For instance, the seed grant went from a full-on competition for submission via email to, we added an LOI for the next year, and this was, InfoReady hadn't done the move from LOI to a real competition yet, so we did an LOI separate, and so we ranked and ordered everybody and then awarded out of the LOI and went to the invited to full. Those are 2 separate things in the system. So they're still existing from 2016, 2017. There are 2 existing competitions. And then last year, or the year before, you merged the LOI to, or I didn't know, I became cognizant of it, but the LOI then transitioned into the full competitions. It's a different kind of copy, right? The LOI said, okay, these are the 6 that we're awarding. Those 6 then move into the full application. And so we open the full application, and it mirrors, it's connected. So now, one single competition, I think that's connected in that way in the system.
And the people who are selected to advance, they don't have to re-enter information they already entered. They just have to fill out the additional questions you're asking. So that makes it easier for them.
There's a different way to copy the competition.
Quick question about the while we were in the there was an applicant-driven routing step.
Yes.
And I just wanted to verify, is that, and I'm very sorry for hijacking this, but all they have to do is enter their person's email address and it automatically delivers to them? That was something that I kind of kept tripping over and wanting to figure out.
If you enable this,
Yeah.
you can, choosing the number of steps will actually determine how many approval steps are appended to the beginning of the routing steps. So let's say you need 2 approvals.
Okay.
Maybe it's a advisor and the department chair. So you'd mark 2 here. Enter these labels, and I'm actually going to skip forward to the next page so you can see what it looks like. Oh. It's going to yell at me. You know what? I didn't click.
Oh, you have to put something in the field.
No, in the field.
Yeah.
We'll just mark it as that.
Yeah.
All right. So then on the routing steps, I should just look at my screen. You can see it says pre-approval number 1, and pre-approval number 2. You can relabel those so that that person is providing the approval can come in. Perfect. So they'll automatically get assigned to these upon submission. You can have them be sequential, or you could go in and have them run concurrently, but the default is concurrent. You can also add, you should also add a deadline to get that approval. If you don't want it to be an approval step, you could also change it to be some other type of step. On top of that, you could go down and edit the label. So if you don't want to say approve, do not approve, maybe it's eligible or ineligible. Okay, perfect. You can make those.
Just to be cognizant of our time, we are at 1:30, so maybe if there's any ask questions, or if you want to show us another thing, but just so people online can
Go about their day.
yeah, go about their day. I don't want to take up everyone's time forever.
Happy to class. Thank you so much. No problem.
Thank you. Thank you.
Here's my business.
Take another sandwich just to go.
Oh no. I go directly to class.
We'll follow up with contact information to everyone who attended.
Oh, yeah,
so
we
we
can
have
send. Oh, but you can send.
just
I don't want them anyway.
I didn't want to rob you of the opportunity to shed them.
I wanted different ones.
Oh,
Anyways, so.
help Carlos achieve his dream of getting new cards.
One other thing you get, and if you want to cover this, editing an application after submission. So you get that one pretty frequently. So applicants and proxies can't make edits after submitting the application. However, there are mechanisms in the system to allow that. So there's 2 key questions. One, has the application been accepted? And the second question you have to ask yourself is, has the deadline passed? So the accepted status has a big impact on your options. If you've accepted an application, you can never return it for revisions. The administrator would have to make the edits. Also, enabling the applicant-driven route accepts disables the option to return applications. So that's something to keep in mind when you use it. So if the application hasn't been accepted yet and the deadline hasn't passed, the administrator just goes in and can return it. Just go to the application and choose the return option. You can put in language about why you're returning it.
So I've had to do this when somebody doesn't submit a biosketch or a budget or something.
Sometimes they accidentally upload the wrong document completely.
It's still got the
happens.
track changes in it.
This can be a batch action as well, but if you're detailing why you're returning it, you may want to customize that message. So you type in here, why you're returning it. There's a link to the application. When you send it, it reverts to draft status, and then the applicant would be able to make the revisions and resubmit anytime prior to the deadline. It's after the deadline, there's different steps you have to take. If you don't want to fuss with editing the deadline, then the administrator need to make the revisions. But what you could do, let's say it's after the deadline, you would have to edit the submission deadline in the system. So let's make it this date. But you don't want it appearing on the home page anymore because you already stopped taking applications. I would recommend making the removal date the original submission deadline. You can actually also show that as a deadline. So then you're covered on all fronts. No one's going to be submitting, and those people that you return the application to can still make the edits. And the proxy would still be able to make the edits as well. Make sure they're CC'd so they can follow the link to get to the application. Great. We have plenty of time for people who want to stick around.
Plenty of lunches, so stay and talk if you want.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you online for joining.
Yeah, for those online, I'll follow up in an email, or maybe LJ will, with the links to the webinars you guys mentioned, and probably the recording of this training and other helpful videos from InfoReady that we find relevant. So we'll get those sent out, and contact information for these gentlemen.
Great, thank you. Okay, thank you, Carlos, thank you.
Thank you to those online.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. Good questions from online.